Every year, 610 CKTB is proud to support Help Kids Shine. I believe this is our 17th year doing the campaign. And while normally we do it in May, we thought it would be more appropriate to do it in October this year. And it's all in to support the Niagara Children's Center. Joining us on the program, we've talked to him many times before on many other issues. He's not only a city councillor representing the ward of St. Patrick's and a high school physics teacher. He's also a Help Kids Shine ambassador and a member of the board for the Niagara Children's Center. Matt Cisco, how are you on this Friday?
Oh, I am wonderful. Mr. McConnell, how are you?
I am fantastic. You and your wife, when did you first become involved with the Niagara Children's Center?
Well, if we're going to talk about our first interaction, that goes back, I guess it would be 7 years ago now. My second oldest son, Kanan, all of our children are adopted, and he came to us when he was about 2.5 and had a number of delays. From a speech standpoint, he couldn't really speak. He had one word. He really could only make the sound for ball, but we don't even know if he really understood what it meant. And then from a physical standpoint, he had some pretty severe issues with his core. He wasn't able to hold himself up, so he couldn't slide down a slide. And he was pretty bow-legged, so he had difficulty walking. And so we brought him to the Children's Center. We got a referral from our family doctor and had him go through the process at the Children's Center. He was assessed, and they put him into speech and language therapy. They did some occupational therapy with him. And I always like to tell everybody that Kanan is he's my ultimate success story because, 7 years ago, he had one word that he could say, and he didn't understand it. And now he's 10, turning 11, and he's fluently bilingual. He speaks. He never stops talking, actually. But he plays hockey, he does CrossFit, he runs triathlons. So, I attribute that almost, entirely, those formative first few years with us at the Children's Center and doing the therapies there. They were really, really incredible, and they've led to all this success now.
What's really remarkable is I have met your children, and I know, I don't know what, when people say you wouldn't even know, but I'm like, the line you said where it's like, he never stops talking is really remarkable because your son is quite an outgoing, I've been with them and he's pretty outgoing. You would never know that, there may have been some challenges early on in his life because he seems to be just doing so well in so many things.
And that's really it. That's the benefit of having a place like the Children's Center is, if you have those early interventions and you're able to get kids into programs early when they're not hitting the milestones they should, if you're late doing that, then sometimes, they have delays throughout their life. They lose confidence in their ability to communicate, so they don't talk as much. So at school, it's difficult to try and get them to speak. But when you have a resource like the Children's Center, and I always joke, the Children's Center, I think, is one of the best-kept secrets in Niagara because unless you've had kids go through the program or you are friends with someone who's had kids go through the program, you probably don't know much about it. But it's once you know somebody and you realize what incredible work they do, and this is what I keep trying to tell people, the work they do is so fantastic because it produces outcomes like this where you would have no idea because the Children's Center did such a good job. They were able to help those kids catch up with their milestones and start meeting milestones on time and develop the way we want all of our kids to be able to develop, and to be able to fix those areas where they have struggles and they need rehabilitative therapy, they need occupational therapy or speech and language. That's the best thing in the world. And so he was the first, and then both of our younger kids went through there for a couple of different reasons, but the Children's Center's been there, and they've been a great resource for the family.
Since 2015, you've also been a board member.
Yep.
And I want to ask you because not only are you a parent, right? And so you see it from one perspective. Your view as a board member, why did you think it was important to join the board? What did you think would be the benefit? And it's like, you know what, I'm gonna join this board and I'm gonna serve on it. What?
It really came down to for me. It was seeing the benefit that my son had seen, and then seeing the benefits that other kids were seeing. And being exposed to friends whose kids had been through programs at the Children's Center. I just realized, having two jobs in the background and having, a family which was growing throughout the time, I have to be very careful about, how much time I can really give outside of the home in other endeavors. My wife has a job, obviously, and she has things that she wants to volunteer for. So this just seemed like the best way for me to be able to, give back to the community, but then also find an organization that I knew was doing good work and really does also need volunteer support from the community. And so that was really the catalyst for me, was watching my son, but then, interacting with other folks whose kids had been through there and had stories similar to mine, or even bigger steps for their kids. It just made me realize this is an area that I could give my time and my talent and all the rest of it. And it's been incredible to be associated with the organization over the last 5 years.
One of the things as well, it gives you certainly a different perspective. As first of all, as a community member, it's one thing to look at the place. As a parent, it's another thing. But now you're really getting an inside look. What is that view like as a board member? Like as an insider looking at, all places face their challenges, all places hopefully have their triumphs. That view from the inside is pretty unique, though.
It is. And, one of the areas that I think probably amazed me the most was just, there's when people hear about the work that's done, the support level is through the roof. We're very lucky, members of the community who understand, they're incredibly supportive, and we hear it from politicians. But, when you look at something like the Children's Center budget, from the provincial government, obviously dollars are always tight, but that's a budget that hasn't really seen any increase as long as I've been on the board. We've seen no funding increase. So we have really worked hard over the last 5 years to build those connections into the community and to watch, we have phenomenal staff up at the Children's Center, and every one of them comes out and volunteers for the events that we run to try and find additional funding in the community, and it's phenomenal. But to see the support that we get from the community as well, you get a different perspective when you're on the board, because you see how all of that hard work translates into better programs at the center and more opportunities for families and more engagement for parents and more training and education for caregivers. It is a different perspective, and it's one of the, I've said this before, I feel incredibly blessed to have been able to take on the role that I have and to be exposed to the people that make the center run the way it does, because the work they do is so important. And I always worry that people won't understand if they haven't had that personal experience. They won't understand just what a huge difference this is making, not just for the individual kids, but for the future of Niagara. Right now I think 5,600 kids are in various types of treatment at the Children's Center, and that's 5,600 kids whose lives will be markedly improved, and the community's life, the community life will be markedly improved in the future as well, because they've been able to get that therapy.
I want your thoughts as both a parent, community leader, but a member of this board, and two parts. What is the biggest challenge facing Niagara Children's Center that you believe as a board member with everything that's happened with the pandemic? And then beyond that, what is the biggest challenge long-term facing the Niagara Children's Center that you would like to see addressed?
Well, the answer to those two questions is sort of one coin, two sides. Obviously, because of the pandemic, the challenges for every organization that depends on, community support have been challenged. And there have been other organizations that I think we've all had to sit back and recognize needed to take the front, the organizations related to supporting frontline workers and purchasing protective equipment for folks who needed it initially during the pandemic. Because, like I said, we face those financial difficulties every year with a budget that doesn't go up, but a need that does. So short term, the issue has been, making sure that we're not crowding the community and pushing too far. And so I think that's a big reason why, we've worked hard to make sure that people understand the reasoning behind why we do our fundraising. It's a recognition that there are a lot of different aspects of the programming at the Children's Center that are enhanced and are made better and create a better opportunity and more opportunity for kids. Long term, I think, and we have a provincial organization that represents children treatment centers. that is really pushing at the provincial level to sort of drive home the recognition that these therapies, they do cost money, and we see an ever-increasing number of kids on waiting lists, and COVID or not, those lists never get shorter. And I think at the Children's Centre, we work really hard to make sure that our wait lists are as short as possible, and we do a really good job. We see the numbers on a monthly basis at board meetings about kids who are waiting, and there's been a real push over my 5 years to make sure that number is kept very low. But we need to see additional provincial funding in the future, because right now it's not sustainable. And ultimately, that's what every organization wants. They want to see a sustainable funding from the government to be able to continue to offer these services. Because, like I said, the long-term benefits that the community reaps, in addition to the individual kids that are helped, the community reaps very important long-term benefits by getting these kids the rehabilitative therapies that they need early on. It leads to so much better outcomes and a more positive outcome overall. So really, I think ultimately it comes down to funding to be able to continue to offer the programs, both this year and going forward.
Finally, let me ask, with your experience as a budget chair and your knowledge of how government works, and considering the Financial Accountability Office yesterday released a report and said, boy, we are in a massive deficit situation. And the Premier mused about, well, maybe we could raise taxes. Are you concerned that something like children's centers in Niagara and elsewhere in the province may see a freeze or possibly even a cut to the amount of money they receive from the government?
Well, I mean, credit to our staff. We've had a freeze, like I said, for the last 5 years for sure, and I know that it's been longer than that. So we haven't seen a single increase to our base budget in that time. A cut would be. I mean, I'll use the word devastating because I think it would be. I think that if the government is going to look at areas to cut, it can't be in children's treatment centers. It can't be in children's rehabilitative services, because these are absolutely essential. You're talking about the difference between, kids being able to meet their milestones and, get through school and move on into the world of work and be able to be productive members of the society, or, you deal with the ramifications of not getting them the help that they need throughout the rest of their lives. And that's not even really a choice, I don't think. In Canada and Ontario in this day and age, that's not a choice. We as a community need to recognize, and the government needs to recognize, that this is not an area for cutting. If anything, the funding needs to increase, because we see more and more kids coming through with needs that have to be met. And so I have to hope that the provincial government understands that, and I have faith, because I see the government MPPs and the opposition MPPs, all of them in the Niagara region, have been to our center and have said categorically what a wonderful job we're doing. And I will say, in my experience as a budget chair, the way the center is run, I challenge anybody to find any fault. I think we're incredibly lucky to have a fantastic senior management team there that does a great job, and we have an incredible staff throughout the center that recognizes the value of the work they do when they put that into practice every day.
Board member Father Cisco, I appreciate your time today as always. Have yourself a great evening and enjoy the weekend, and we'll talk again soon.
Sounds good. Thank you, Tom. You take care.
The Niagara Children's Centre and the Help Kids Shine campaign. That was Matt Cisco, not only proud father of 4, but also board member for Niagara Children's Centre. And if you want to make a donation, Help Kids Shine.